Hi, I'm Steve.
And I'm John.
John, today we're talking about Namecheck.
Namecheck. Now, last time we actually found a domain name for our imaginary company, and what we're going to do is sort of a next step to see if the name that we found, that URL, is available as a username in a lot of the social media networks that are out there.
Okay.
Now, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the social media stuff yet, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here. So I want you to not get too upset just yet.
Okay.
We're going to talk more about Twitter and Facebook and all the others later.
But I don't have to know anything about them right now.
Right now, what you need to know is that what we're looking for is a name that's available on these.
Okay. So that when we do go to those, we know what name we want to use. We're not just shooting in the dark. Because I do happen to have a Facebook, a Twitter, and a LinkedIn account.
You're like a child prodigy.
And they all have different usernames.
Right.
Okay, and so that's what we want to avoid.
Right. We want people to be able to say, oh, wow, this is Acme Wichita. I just found it on Facebook. This must be the same Acme Wichita that posts on Twitter.
Right.
Must be the same Acme Wichita that posts on Plurk, that sort of thing.
But so how do you do that? I mean, there's
a website that we're going to take a look at here. It's called Namecheck.com.
Okay.
But again, this is another example of like Flickr, where they've taken a couple letters out of the name to find something that still sounds the same when you say it, but it's spelled not quite right, so it's easier to get that as a domain name. So the URL is Namecheck. So they've taken the EC out of the middle of check.
.com.
Right.
Okay.
So it's namechk.com.
Okay.
And that brings you to this website right here.
Okay, and you're gonna refresh that website or get it started.
As soon as I get the video started here, we will.
And I see there are 4 columns.
There's 4 columns. There's about 60 websites listed on this website right now. So there's a lot of them. And again, we've mentioned Facebook. We've mentioned Twitter. That's over here. There's a couple other ones in here.
I see YouTube that I recognize.
YouTube's here. Yeah, there's a lot of video ones. Vimeo is another video one.
Okay.
There's Flickr. We've mentioned Flickr as a photography site.
Okay.
There's another one here that we're going to pay attention to that I think is going to be really important for a lot of businesses, and that's Foursquare. Foursquare is one of several of these sorts of Twitter-style social networking, micro-blogging kind of sites, and I know I'm throwing out a bunch of terms. But
yeah, you're making me panic.
That's all right. The important thing about Foursquare and other similar sites is that it's really focused on location, on physical locations. So people create, and it ties into their cell phones and the GPS locators on their cell phones. So that becomes really, really
interesting. If you have a physical location for your business, it helps people get there.
And what you start being able to do, and we'll spend a lot more time talking about that sort of stuff, but you start being able to reward people for coming to your business in a virtual way. It's actually what they're doing with this is very cool. But, all right, so we're going to see here if Acme Wichita is available. We're going to type in Acme Wichita and just hit the big green button here. And it's just going to check all of them for us.
And so it's starting to pop up all over here, available. Oh, we picked a good name, didn't we?
We did. It looks like there's only a couple of places where it's not available.
Google says
indefinite. Google's not sure. Google doesn't see it as a domain. Well, it is not seeing the domain name registered because we don't register the domain yet. It's still sitting in our shopping cart. And that's not something that we really need to worry about. Caboodle and Etsy are far enough away from the kinds of business we're trying to do that that's not important.
But overall, I look at the big picture here, that name is available on all of these social websites.
Especially the important ones we've been really focusing on. So I think we've got a good name, and we're in a good spot to actually register the domain name. And as we start investigating some of these social networks, we may want to start actually getting that domain, that name on those social networks. So when we look at Twitter, we'll want to get that name registered on Twitter right away, just so that nobody beats us to it.
Okay, so let me summarize a little bit. We talked about a domain name, and we found Acme Wichita. We played around with that some in a previous video.
Right.
This time we looked at that name associated with all of these social networks, and now you're saying we're going to buy that domain name, we're going to start to sign up for these social networks, so they all have the same name.
Right.
Ah.
Right.
Okay. So After this, then, we're going to start to go through the social networks and start to sign up?
We'll start playing around with, I think we'll start with Twitter and take a look at Twitter. Twitter's basically even though it's been around for a grand total of a couple of years now, it's sort of the grandfather of a lot of this sort of stuff. They started the microblogging idea, and they've, yeah.
So next time, we're going to look at Twitter.
We will.
Okay, see you next time.